The Forest Ranger's Encounter with a Skinwalker. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I have a chilling and true story for you. It involves a forest ranger's terrifying encounter with a skinwalker deep in the wilderness. This ranger's experience is one of survival, courage, and the supernatural. So, settle in as we delve into this spine-tingling tale. Our story begins with a seasoned forest ranger named Mike, who had spent over 2 decades patrolling the dense forests of the American Southwest. Mike was familiar with the local wildlife and had heard numerous tales from indigenous tribes about mysterious creatures and spirits that roamed the land. But as a man of science and reason, he never gave much thought to these stories until one fateful night. It was a cold, moonlit night in late autumn when Mike received a distress call from a hiker who had gotten lost deep in the forest. With his experience and knowledge of the terrain, Mike set out immediately to find the stranded hiker. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the forest grew eerily silent. The usual sounds of nocturnal animals and rustling leaves were absent, replaced by an oppressive, unnatural quiet. Mike followed the hiker's last known coordinates, guided by the faint glow of his flashlight. The silence was unsettling, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The trees around him seemed to close in, their gnarled branches casting eerie shadows in the moonlight. After about an hour of trekking, he spotted a figure in the distance, slumped against a tree. It was the hiker, looking pale and terrified. The hiker, a young man in his 20s, was trembling and had a look of sheer terror in his eyes. He kept mumbling about a creature that had been stalking him. Mike tried to calm him down, assuring him that they were safe now. But as he turned to lead the hiker back to safety, he heard a low, guttural growl behind him. Mike spun around, shining his flashlight into the darkness. At first, he saw nothing, but then, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of movement. A tall, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes was lurking just beyond the tree line. The creature's appearance was distorted, almost as if it were shifting between forms. Mike's heart raced as he realized he was face to face with something beyond his understanding. The creature let out another growl, this time louder and more menacing. It began to move closer, its movements unnaturally smooth and fluid. Mike knew he had to act fast. He grabbed the hiker by the arm and started running back towards his truck, praying they could outrun whatever was pursuing them. As they ran, the creature's growls grew louder, and Mike could hear its footsteps gaining on them. The forest seemed to come alive with sinister whispers and rustling leaves. Mike's mind raced, trying to remember the stories he had heard about skinwalkers. They were said to be shapeshifters, capable of taking on the form of animals or humans to deceive and hunt their prey. Just when Mike thought they couldn't run any further, they burst into a small clearing. His truck was parked at the edge, a beacon of hope in the darkness. They scrambled inside and Mike fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. The engine roared to life, and he slammed his foot on the gas, speeding away from the clearing. As they drove, Mike glanced in the rearview mirror. The creature was standing at the edge of the clearing, watching them with those eerie red eyes. It didn't pursue them further, but Mike could feel its gaze burning into the back of his head. He drove for what felt like hours until they finally reached the ranger station. Once inside, Mike locked the doors and called for backup. He and the hiker were both shaken, but safe. They spent the rest of the night recounting their harrowing experience to the other rangers. The hiker's story matched Mike's, a terrifying creature with glowing red eyes that had pursued him relentlessly through the forest. In the days that followed, Mike did some research on skinwalkers, hoping to find some explanation for what they had encountered. The legends spoke of Navajo witches who could transform into animals or people to carry out malevolent deeds. They were feared and respected, and encounters with them were rare and often deadly. Mike knew that he had come face to face with one of these legendary beings. The experience changed him, making him more cautious and respectful of the supernatural stories he had once dismissed. He continued his work as a ranger, but with a newfound awareness of the mysteries that lurked in the forest. And so, Mike's encounter with the skinwalker became a legend of its own, a cautionary tale shared among the rangers and local communities. It served as a reminder that some stories, no matter how unbelievable, might hold a grain of truth. So if you ever find yourself alone in the forest at night, remember Mike's story and be mindful of the shadows, for you never know what might be watching from the darkness. Mike thought he had seen the worst of it, but the story didn't end there. Over the next few weeks, strange things began happening around the ranger station. Unexplained noises, missing items, and sightings of shadowy figures in the distance plagued the rangers. It seemed as though the skinwalker was not finished with Mike. One evening, Mike was closing up the station when he heard a faint whispering coming from the forest. It was the same sinister whispering he had heard the night of the encounter. His heart pounding, Mike grabbed his flashlight and cautiously stepped outside. The whispering grew louder, and as he shone his light into the trees, he saw those same glowing red eyes staring back at him. Terrified, Mike retreated back into the station and locked the doors. The whispers continued throughout the night, growing louder and more insistent. Mike knew he had to do something. He reached out to a local Navajo elder, hoping to find some way to protect himself and his fellow rangers from the skinwalker's malevolent presence. The elder listened to Mike's story with a grave expression. He explained that skinwalkers were powerful and dangerous, but there were ways to protect oneself. He provided Mike with a pouch of sacred herbs and instructed him to perform a cleansing ritual around the ranger station. The elder also warned Mike to be vigilant and never to confront the skinwalker directly. Mike followed the elder's instructions meticulously. He and the other rangers performed the cleansing ritual, spreading the sacred herbs around the station and chanting prayers for protection. For a few days, the strange occurrences ceased, and the rangers began to feel a sense of relief, but the respite was short-lived. One night, as Mike was patrolling the forest, he heard the familiar growl behind him. He turned to see the skinwalker, its form shifting and contorting in the moonlight. It seemed angrier than ever, its red eyes blazing with fury. Mike knew he had to get back to the station. He ran through the forest, the creature hot on his heels. As he neared the clearing, he saw the station lights in the distance, a beacon of hope once again. Just as he reached the edge of the clearing, the skinwalker lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. In the struggle that followed, Mike felt a sharp pain as the creature's claws raked across his arm. He fought back with all his strength, using his flashlight to strike the skinwalker. The creature howled in pain, momentarily stunned. Seizing the opportunity, Mike scrambled to his feet and ran to the station. He burst through the doors, slamming them shut behind him. The other rangers rushed to his aid, and they could see the deep gashes on his arm. Mike's breathing was heavy, and his mind raced with fear and adrenaline. The skinwalker's attack had left him shaken, but he knew he couldn't let it win. The rangers reinforced the station's defenses and stayed vigilant, but the sense of unease lingered. The skinwalker's presence was a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the tree line. Despite their best efforts, the creature continued to torment them, its growls and whispers echoing through the night. Desperate for a solution, Mike visited the Navajo elder again. The elder, seeing the severity of the situation, decided to take a more direct approach. He agreed to perform a powerful banishment ritual to drive the skinwalker away for good. However, the ritual required a personal item from Mike, something imbued with his spirit. Mike offered his ranger badge, a symbol of his dedication and commitment to protecting the forest. The elder accepted it and prepared for the ritual. On the night of the full moon, the elder arrived at the ranger station, bringing with him other members of his community who were well-versed in the ancient rites. The rangers gathered around as the elder began the ceremony. The air was thick with tension, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. The elder chanted in a language unfamiliar to Mike, calling upon the spirits to aid in the banishment. The sacred herbs were burned, and the smoke filled the air, creating a protective barrier around the station. As the ritual reached its climax, the ground trembled, and a chilling wind swept through the clearing. The skinwalker appeared at the edge of the forest, its form more menacing than ever. It let out a deafening roar, but the elder stood firm, his chants growing louder and more powerful. The skinwalker advanced, but as it crossed the boundary of the sacred smoke, it recoiled in pain. The elder continued the ritual, his voice unwavering. The creature thrashed and howled, but it could not breach the protective barrier. With one final agonized scream, the skinwalker was consumed by the smoke, its form dissipating into the night. The forest fell silent, and a sense of peace settled over the ranger station. The elder finished the ritual and turned to Mike, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It is done," he said. "The skinwalker will not trouble you again." Relief washed over Mike and the other rangers. They thanked the elder and his community for their help and protection. The experience had left a lasting impact on them all, a reminder of the unseen forces that inhabit the world. Mike continued his work as a ranger, but with a newfound respect for the supernatural. He never forgot the night he faced the skinwalker, and he carried the lessons he learned with him always. The forest was no longer just a place of beauty and serenity. It was also a realm of mystery and danger. And so Mike's encounter with the skinwalker became a legend of its own, a cautionary tale shared among the rangers and local communities. It served as a reminder that some stories, no matter how unbelievable, might hold a grain of truth. So if you ever find yourself alone in the forest at night, remember Mike's story and be mindful of the shadows, for you never know what might be watching from the darkness.